I think we actually did it, or kind of. Still a very low budget production. The music is high quality, but yeah, I've been on a couple of other podcasts. I think I mentioned before, and they were using, StreamYard, fancy stuff, and we're just using Zoom and PowerPoint, or really Keynote right now. So awesome. The chat is going. We've got Liam joining from the road. I would imagine maybe a guest appearance from Sam, if that's possible. We'll talk a little bit more about that, or maybe Sam doesn't want to be on camera. But yeah, thank you, everybody. She's there. Thank you, everybody, for hey, Sam. Thanks, everybody, for joining. This is episode five of the Coin Jam podcast, and they said we wouldn't even get to 2. And yeah, really awesome episode here. Yeah, the live chat is really rocking right now. So let's go ahead and get things started. Hi, everybody. I'm Charlie from Overtime Arcade. I'm the channel that hosts this podcast, and I'm joined by 2 of my 3 typical partners in crime. We've got Jeremiah Jackson from Korner on YouTube. Say hi, Jeremiah. There we go.
Hi, Jeremiah.
And dapper as always. There you go. And we've also got Liam he's one half of Retrobotics, and the other half is his better half, Sam, right there. They're joining us on the road today. The better half, there you go. That's what they say. So a couple of excuses right up front. Kay is very sorry he's unable to make it to today's episode due to a family commitment. But hopefully we'll have him back for the next episode coming up next month. And yeah, Liam is kind of dealing with a bit of the process of moving, and he found himself sort of stuck needing to make.
We're going for another round of getting large objects and bringing them back to our new place. We'll talk about that more later in the episode.
Awesome. But we're glad you can make it. And it's awesome to have Sam joining us a little bit too. But very special for this episode. You can think of him a little bit like the 5th Beatle. So Cameron is well known to all of us on the podcast, and probably lots of folks who are listening or watching or listening later. We'll let Cam introduce himself for a bit. But when we were sort of conceiving the idea behind this podcast, we had approached Cameron about possibly being a permanent co-host, and there were some conflicts, scheduling, and he's got a very hectic, workload in his day job and, with family and everything, but we're thrilled that he was able to join us here. And if things go well, we might be able to convince him to come back again, but we'll leave that to later. But yeah, Cameron, why don't you introduce yourself real quick? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the hobby, that sort of thing.
Sure. So I'm Cameron McCasland. I'm an arcade collector that lives in Nashville, Tennessee. I will say that it was one of my great disappointments that I wasn't able to commit to this. I do watch the show. I enjoy it thoroughly, and just kind of seeing all you guys, doing your thing on YouTube and all the other spots. Actually, I'm the person that got Jeremiah all those Pac-Man tables that he has been working on for videos, and he owes us episode 2 on that. So I need to push him on that thing. But yeah, so pretty much. As far as how I got into the hobby, I will say this. I grew up in East Texas, basically. My uncle owned a game room back in the day. My father owned a television shop. And with my uncle's game room, what that basically was there were video games on the front side, and then there was a secret knock to the back door where you could come in and gamble and play cards. And so my mother did not like me hanging around that place at all. But when I was just like a wee lad, anytime one of the arcade games would break, they would bring them over to my dad's TV shop. He would repair them, and then they would sit me up on a stool and say, "Hey, play this until it breaks again." And so, like, from a very early age, I got, I got that piece of it. But whenever the arcade bust happened, basically, my uncle closed down that game room, and he moved a Pac-Man cocktail and a Miss Pac-Man cocktail into his house. And so as a kid, I grew up around that, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that you could have an arcade game in your house. And I thought, when I grow up, I want to have that. Flash forward all these years, it's like I bought a Donkey Kong machine, 7 years ago at this point. And I had always kind of wanted to have a game that turned into, you buy another game and you buy another game. Pretty soon you're got a game room full and a garage full, and projects that'll last you forever and ever. So that's kind of where I'm at this point.
So what do your parents think now? Your mom didn't want you going to the arcades, hanging out, thinking it would be a bad influence, and now you're a degenerate collector like the rest of us.
I don't think that she was so worried about the video games as much as what was happening in the back room. She just didn't want me being around all of that mess. But as far as the video games go, she's okay with it. And again, like, kind of same as, it's like I was born in 81. So like, it's like I played, I think because I had that experience really young, I love all the like classic arcade game stuff. But when I was like of age to be hanging out in arcades, it was stuff like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and, all that stuff. And there was like a pizza shop that I used to hang out in all the time. And like, it was just constantly there. And so I don't know. I feel like if you're of a certain age, like video games are just kind of second nature. You grew up beside them. And, it's like for me, it was just always part of my adolescence. And I've never stopped playing it. You know what I mean? It's just like Galaga, Miss Pac-Man. I feel like I've been playing it since I was 2 years old. And like, I've never stopped playing either one of those games.
And now you've got this super impressive collection that, lots of folks are insanely jealous of, myself included, so much so that it's been, featured in the news. We'll let you talk a little bit about this sort of awesome score. But yeah, tell us a little bit about how you've gotten your collection kind of on the local news.
So kind of, I work in television anyways. That's kind of my day job. And I have like, I just here in Nashville, like it's such a mecca right now for arcade stuff. We've got a couple of like world-class arcades that are here in town. And I know those guys, I deal with those guys. Like, it's like I see those guys. And so they've all kind of told me like, well, yeah, we started collecting, then we opened up an arcade. I've never had any interest in like being in the business of it. But because I knew this local reporter from another thing that I had done in the past, he like, we're friends on Facebook. I post all my stuff as I pick it up. And he just kind of took an interest in it. He's like, how does this come about? He's like, would you be willing to like sit down and talk about it? So I invited him over to the house, showed him around. And then Chris Royalty, who owns Hot Rod Arcade, which is just outside of Nashville, and they do like pinballplating.com and all that stuff. We got him involved so he could kind of show off what they're doing, both at his shop up near Jolton, Tennessee, and then like also at Eastside Bowl, which is just another great small game room that's here in town for, they do pinball tournaments there every month. And just turned into this nice little neat story that Forrest Sanders put together, who's the reporter here in town, and like just a feel good story, which is kind of Forrest's thing. And so I don't know, that was a cool experience. And it's been funny because that's been, I don't know, a month and a half ago since that came out. And even around town, like I've had a couple of people stop me and go, oh, I saw that. Or like, and even a couple of people that like found me and said, hey, I've got a game here or a game in my basement. Like, how can I get this fixed, or do you want to buy it, and all those different kinds of things. So it's been kind of fun. And also like I feel like that's a good kind of thing whenever you're like buying something, whenever someone's like, oh, I think this is worth this. I'm like, well, I think it is. Here's who I am. Like, you can kind of see like I'm legit. I know what this is about, and like, give everybody a fair shake, but like let them know that it's not all golden.
Yeah. So have the prices with that notoriety, have the prices on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist in Nashville been shooting through the roof lately?
The funny thing about Nashville is like it's not a great spot for buying games, and the reason being is because there's all these great arcades that are around town. So when someone usually has something broken, they call one of those guys and say, hey, I've got this, what's it worth? And if it's anything that's any good, they go buy it before anyone else sees it. It's like, I've not to say that I haven't found some deals in town, but most of when I go pick stuff up, it's, I'm driving an hour or two out of town to go pick it up, or just at this point, like dealing with other collectors like you guys, who's just like, it's like I always let other people like know this is what I'm looking for. And then like they say, hey, I found this, or like I could pick this up. And like the amount of games that have got shoveled from one place to the other to get all the way down here. It's like there's kind of like this railroad system of games that kind of like get parked in my garage for a little bit till someone else can come pick up and move the next one on.
Jeremiah and I don't know what that's like. Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
And you were saying, and it's absolutely true, Nashville has some awesome arcades. And I was in the area about 6 months ago, and I actually hit you up on Claw. I know you're slammed with work and couldn't meet me, but I'm like, hey, I'd love the sort of locals recommendations on where to go. And you told me to go to Game Galaxy and Game Terminal and Up and Down and some other places, but I did hit those three, which are all incredible. Like they're all three of them are very different from each other. I did little 60-second tours of them on my YouTube channel. But yeah, what's that kind of like, because like, where I am in DC, you got to kind of go a long way to really get anything close to that kind of experience. So are you going there every week, or what's that like?
I feel very spoiled. And I'll say this, before I had like this set up here at the house, I used to go to Game Galaxy twice a week, because they used to have a location that was actually a little bit closer to me, because like Jason Wilson is the guy who owns that. And like, he has one that's in Smyrna, Tennessee. There used to be one up in the Madison area, which is both on like the outskirts suburbs of Nashville. but he had one that was in Hickory Hollow, and like somewhere on my YouTube channel from like probably 14, 15 years ago, I do a tour of his arcade at the mall. And then like from there, it moved into like an old Best Buy. And then finally he moved into one Smyrna because his collection kept getting bigger. And so he's got a lot
400 games.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, he has such a great collection and some really rare birds, like a ton of rare pinball stuff. It's like, I think it's on scale with what Gallop and Ghost is doing in Chicago, but he is not nearly as good at marketing it as all those guys up in Chicago are, obviously. But there's some really cool stuff in that place. If you just want to see rare stuff, he's got it. But on top of that, it's like, everything that's happened at a game terminal, which is like, spit spot, cleanest games, like all full restores. It's amazing to see it in its place.
And free play with no cover. Unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like there's all these, on top of those three places, like we've got a Pins Mechanical, which has got a free arcade stuff. You got to pay for bowling and all that stuff, but a great thing. I mentioned the East Side Bowl, which is like, it's a small game room, but it's like all the hits are there, and then like all the new Stern pinball stuff is there. And like, there's
the laundry mat that's got a ton of games.
There's that place that's got like a ton of that. There's over in East Nashville, there's another big pinball spot. There's I don't know. There's quite a few places that just have like what anybody else, like if you walked into, you would be impressed by. But for us in town, you're like, well, this one's good, but it's not as good as either of the two giant ones that are here. And so I feel very spoiled. But all that to say, it's like now that like I've got this game room, and by nature of the scheduling stuff, I get to one or the other like once or twice a month. Game Terminal was actually right across the street from my daughter's high school. She just graduated, but like whenever she was still of age where I needed to go drive and pick her up, a lot of times I would get over there a little bit early, pop in over there before I had to go pick her up and see those guys. And like every one of those businesses is great. It's like they've all got just cool stuff to see. Like, it's like usually if you let them know you're coming ahead of time, they'll give you some special access. Like with Game Terminal, like they've got all those computer spaces. If you let them know you want to see it, they'll make sure someone's there to show you around and let you play some stuff that otherwise they don't keep out on the floor. And if you ever get into the back room of that place, the amount of stuff that you can't see is also just insane. He has got, there's an equal amount of arcade space with just rows on rows of games that they're working through restoration on right now. So it's pretty cool.
So it sounds like anybody interested enough to be listening to this podcast, if given an opportunity, should definitely make a pilgrimage to Nashville to avail themselves of all of these.
Yeah.
You telling Sam turn the wheel?
I keep like me and Chris Royalty were talking just a couple weeks ago. I was out at his place, and again, because like his shop is funny because he's got a full arcade in that place that's not open to the public. It's just like they work on it. He's got a showroom, and I go hang out there quite a bit just because we're friends. But like he's kind of the same thing where he can put on parties, and that's pretty much what they do. They just rent that space and like let kids come in and do things like that. But we were talking about the idea of like, doing a meetup where we did like a swap meet at his spot, but almost like an arcade tourism thing where it's just like you pick a weekend where it's not like a show, but like everybody comes to Nashville, you meet at one arcade and you have dinner together, and then you go the next day, you go to the next arcade and vice versa. Cause like over a weekend, you can hit all these places and have a really good time and kind of see a lot of stuff. If you have someone that's local that's showing you around kind of where everything is and like making a plan. Like I never got to the all the old Grinkers things that they used to do. But I feel like if a new version of that were going to happen, Nashville would be a great spot for it to happen just because there's so much here to see. And it's like, everything's within a half hour of each other from driving spots. So like you can spend a morning here, an evening over here, a morning here, an evening over here. And I think, that's the way to go about it. And there's, there is an arcade show here that happens. The Grand Ole Game Room Expo is what it was called. And it's great as well. But it's just like, it's kind of the same thing where like, if you're going for just classic arcade games, like it's good, but there's so many great arcades in town. It's like, oh, that's not what you're going for. You're going for all the other hobby stuff that's happening in that space that weekend.
Well, and that's cool, right? So it's like, up where Jeremiah is in Kentucky, you got the Bourbon Trail, and maybe down in Tennessee and Nashville, you can have the arcade trail.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
And I've done the Bourbon Trail, so the arcade trail's next.
I just went through this past week. We went over to West Virginia. I was actually over at Billy Bob's Wonderland and got the behind the scenes tour of the whole Rocket Fire Explosion thing. But we went down the Bluegrass Highway all the way from Nashville up, and then from Cave City all the way over to Barbersville, West Virginia, and back again. So
I saw you were posting on Facebook almost like every single roadside attraction, right? Like world's largest ball of twine or whatever.
Yeah, we were kind of doing this like again because like my kid just graduated, so like we're at that spot where like we know that like she's going to be in college and then entering the workforce, and it's going to get harder and harder for us to like take these trips. And so we're like, we just wanted to do last big, Great American Road Tour where we just kind of go hit the road and see the sights and do some of that funky roadside attraction stuff. So we went to Cave City and saw the haunted house and, the world's largest pocket knife and the big hot dog, and, all the things. So it was fun.
Little National Lampoon family vacation of your
Absolutely.
own. Awesome.
Absolutely.
And Cam, we're going to hear a lot more from you, especially about this sort of huge thing that probably everyone listening to the podcast, watching the live stream, has seen some of those photos. But we're going to take a moment here to go into sort of our typical sort of standard updates. And obviously we want you to participate in this too. So we typically go around and kind of touch on where everyone's been on recent pickups, games that they've picked up, and any game room updates. So Jeremiah, do you want to go first?
Sure.
His answer is usually nothing's changed, but that's not true.
Yeah. Sorry if there's a lag. I anyone who watched the last episode saw my internet trouble. Since then, I've gotten satellite internet, and that's a bit laggy, but it's just a stopgap till I get Starlink. Game room update. My cat just opened the door. I've been putting a bunch of stuff on the wall, so now I've got all my Sega Genesis cases up at the top of the wall now, and some like promotional posters. But hello, kitty. The most important thing is that right there. That is another in the long list of Holy Grail claw machines I've been looking for, and that's going to be the topic later in the episode of how I got that. And that's, once again, that is my 5th last game that I'm ever going to buy. So
you can't stop.
Well, I'm going to have to. Like, I can't fit anything else in this space. But that's pretty much all I've got on the game room. I haven't had any games go down, or haven't had the urge to swap anything.
Jeremiah, I'll say I said the same thing, then I bought a dozen more games, so I don't believe you.
I don't believe me either.
Yeah, welcome to the club. None of us believe me either.
And the I don't know if this was there before. I guess I'm not remembering it, or maybe it was in a different position. But the giant Pac-Man on top of the Super Pac-Man, sort of mimicking the side art, was that there last time?
That has been there ever since. So the giant plush toy, I've owned that longer than I've owned the actual machine. So as soon as I got the machine, I was like, look at that side art, and what fits right on top? That. So yeah,
there you go.
That's been.
All right, Liam, how about you? What's been going on? You got a lot to talk about, but other than your sort of main story, any other things going on in your world?
Let's see. We didn't do any pickups since Millipede and Firefox, so everything that we've got has been pretty constant since then. The big task has been moving, and we'll talk more about that later, trying to get an entire collection of games from point A to point B and not break them all. That's a fun endeavor. As far as projects go, we finally have a workshop space set up, so we can do some work on the games that we've got that don't work, which currently includes Millipede, Smash TV, Asteroids, and our space shuttle pinball machine that is a barn find also. Right now, definitely looking for a Smash TV control panel, since the board set that I got from both Charlie and Charles Klein is working. I was able to test that. Very happy with that. And I've started the process of restoring that lunar lander control panel, since it's in the workshop and I have cleaning supplies. So I pulled out
your junkyard find.
Yeah, it was in a scrapyard. That was interesting, and we got it on OfferUp, and just had that shipped over to us, and it came with a thruster for less than the cost of a thruster. So pretty happy with that. It'll turn our asteroids into a quasi-dedicated lunar lander to go next to our Asteroids Deluxe. So anything else?
Oh, we got the Smash TV marquee.
Oh yeah, thanks to Steve from the last episode, we got a Smash TV marquee. He sent us one. So now the only missing part for our Smash TV project is a control panel.
There you go. I know Steve Lady's been hooking up a lot of people lately, helping them out. Super, super nice guy. And we appreciate when he joined us. And Cam, other than the sort of big Nashville barn haul, any game room updates, any other pickups to talk about?
It's kind of that same week that I bought all that for that one spot. I did pick up another class of 81 reunion cabinet that was in much worse shape than the pictures led on whenever I got there, which it goes that way sometimes. It was not a thing that I needed, but it was one of those things that was cheap enough that I was like, oh, I should go grab this because it works. And ultimately, I'm probably going to trade that for another game down the road. It just, it is what it is. I really like, I have not bought any other games since I did that big barn find for obvious reasons, because I still have way too much stuff in my space. Even that class of 81, it's not even here. I parked it up at Chris's shop. So it's like waiting over there, for that. But there was, funny enough, there was a Birdie King that popped up on OfferUp, which is not a thing that I need at all. But, I was like, oh, this is cheap enough. I sent the guy a message and haven't heard back. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
Well, now you got everyone within, driving distance of Nashville checking OfferUp for that Birdie King.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if you need that Birdie King worse than me, I'm not going to be mad at you if you go get it.
Is it a dedicated Birdie King, or is it like a journey or something?
It's a dedicated Birdie King too. It's in good shape, but like there's actually that and a bowling machine that has no price. I think it's like offer only. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. Good stuff. And obviously more to come on all that. As for me, let's see, I've been these games, I don't even look anymore, right? Games just find me.
You have a problem.
I have gone from checking, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, multiple times a day and all these other places to literally, I don't check anymore, but the games just find me, right? So we'll talk a little bit about the two cabinets that I got from Jeremiah. I mentioned I was on I think it was She Lion's podcast, and I talked about the Outrun Mini that I bought from Dell from Delusionals Arcade. Shout out Dell right there. And right there, rocking the merch. So I haven't done a pickup video on that Outrun yet, but that's coming soon. I got that depth charge that I did a video about. By far the worst performing video that I've made in months. Apparently nobody has any appreciation for naval themed black and white Bronze era games from the 70s. And here I was thinking I was hacking the algorithm by having a legitimate submarine focused video when submarines are all in the news and everyone's searching for submarines and underwater mishaps or whatever. But that was really cool. And I did a video about that, but the quick story there was we were talking even before the show. I got a buddy, Mark, who runs Back to the Media. It's a game store and record store and comics in Winchester, Virginia. He's building an arcade in his back room, and he is very much actively looking, even putting out like want ads for games to fix up to put in this arcade. Anyway, he sees an ad for a Simpsons, but they want too much for it, whatever. And in the background, you can see a Ms. Pack, which I've already got one, a project. And you can see a little glimpse of this depth charge. So we sort of say, you always ask, hey, what else do you have for sale? And they only wanted $100 for it. So hopped all over that, and it works, needs to be cleaned up a little bit and, refreshed a bit, but, shockingly fun game, right? For a Bronze Age, it is very simple, but it's really, really fun. And, we'll talk more about this. I have, and Liam knows, again, talking about degenerate collectors. I've got 2 more pickups lined up for the next couple of days. Talk more about that in a minute. But I think I'm up to 15 projects in the garage right now. And I was recently playing Tetris to really pack them in as densely as possible to not completely overload. But speaking of projects, Cameron, do you want to talk to us a little bit about, what you're working on? Like you said, the class of 81 needs a little bit of TLC, again, other than your sort of huge score, anything else that you're currently working on?
Yeah, so this is my game room, and like kind of my goal is to keep everything in here working, and then I keep games in my garage as well that are kind of in. Most of them are semi-working, but they have a little bit of cosmetic or some disrepair that need to go. I don't know. I've got a Space Invaders Cabaret that I've got like a rebuild kit for the controls. I got a new board because the board I had went missing basically, and I kind of need to put it all together and move it down the road because I got a full-size Japanese like Tato Space Invaders that I want to put in here, and I'm at the point where like it's hard to keep two of the same of anything. And then on top of that, like I don't know, I've got a my space dungeon that's back here, like in the background. I've got like all the Take Man control panel, and then like this old game made the overlay. I just need to put it all together and like get it all in there because I bought that thing funny enough, and it was someone had turned it into a 60-in-1, and the cabinet now is gorgeous, but like it's just getting all the pieces put together and back in, and I've got everything. I just need like a day to just put it right, basically.
Never so satisfying when you do that, though.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
When we finally got around to putting together a Robotron, it all came together in about an hour.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is like it's not like the thing about anything in this room working on it. That one's actually doesn't back because it's on the end of a row, but you kind of have to move everything to get the one thing out far enough where you can like get to it. And the truth of it is like this, like I've done less arcade restoration this year than I have in the last like, probably 4 or 5 years, just because there hasn't been as much time. There's a guy named David Schumann who's a buddy of mine in town, and he's on the forums. He's actually the guy that did the Poke 1 remake that they did, but he comes over and helps me like work on games, and like we just kind of hang out. So he's been busy and I've been busy, so we haven't had as much time to like get together and hang out. So not as much productive weekends have happened in that way. We kept saying we were going to wait for winter to be over, and now it's like, you know, I think it hit 95 degrees in Nashville today, and we haven't worked on games in like 2 months. So
I've got at least 2 Poke 1s running back here, maybe 3.
Okay, right on.
There you go. Liam, how about you? You know, again, other than your major life project, what's cooking in the workshop?
Like I said before, Smash TV is the only game that I'm actively sort of working on. I'm trying to repair the 25-inch monitor, which is a Cortec KT12 or something. I think it's actually technically a 26-inch chassis, but it fits in the 25-inch frame and bezel just fine, so I don't know. But I'm trying to bring that back to life so I can get Smash TV to work, since I was able to bench test the board using the pieces that you provided, Charlie, which I greatly appreciate. Thank you very much. Other than that,
a housewarming gift.
Yes, Lunar Lander / Asteroids. I have a cat box now, FPGA cat box. So I'm excited to go ahead and try to use that to repair that Asteroids board. I've got the setup for it. I just need to find time to knuckle down and do it. And we brought Millipede in today into the workshop space, but I realized that the keys are still in Bradford.
So that's why you turned around and drove all the way back for the keys to the Millipede?
Yeah, totally. And you know what? It's not even this is the second time that this has happened, because remember when you were helping us move in, we forgot the keys to the pinball machine too. So last weekend went and got the keys to the pinball machine. So there's been a chaotic move, but the workshop is looking real nice. I think I sent you some photos of it. It's there's a lot of stuff going on now. We got a surplus electronics bench, 6-foot electronics multi-tiered bench, and I have never been in love with a workbench as much as I have this one. I'm very excited for it.
Awesome. And before we get to Jeremiah, I have to stop for a moment and say thank you. They just changed all of the rules on YouTube, but you know, my channel recently got monetized, so I need to say thank you to my first 2 ever super chats. So thank you, Stringer Films, for the $200 million super chat here. I hope you didn't make a mistake when you moved the decimal place. Stringer Films, I think his name is Matt, asked, did you end up getting that golden tee working? So yes and no. I got sent a whole bunch of boards. I think Troy from Troy's Restorations ended up sending me 4 different golden tee boards. So I'm hoping between those I'll be able to get it up and running. And I've got a bunch of time off for Independence Day, so I'm hoping to knock out a whole bunch of stuff. I'll be sure to post an update on that. And again, Stringer Films, thank you for the super chat. And then Jerry Voluptuous, who is also a channel member of Overtime Arcade and a big part of our private members-only Discord channel. He dropped a $499 million super chat saying, still working, just stopping in to say hi, and I'll catch the replay later tonight. Jerry, thank you so much. You're super, super generous, and it's been really fun getting to know you lately. So with that, let me kick it over to Jeremiah for an update on his active projects.
So my 2 active projects right now, number 1 priority is getting that running, that crane machine. Being from the 1930s, it has some parts that have worn out. Unfortunately, the main thing that wore out was the gear reduction mechanism on the motor. And so I tried to find replacement gear. Nobody's making one. So I'm having to replace the glorious 120 volts AC motor that sounds wonderful when it runs with a cheap 12 volt DC motor and a power supply, which makes me feel really crummy inside, but it's what you got to do. That is currently on.
Gears?
Say that again?
You think you can make one of those gears?
If I had a lot of stuff to do metal tooling, I think I could. I have the gear there. It's just that most of the teeth are worn out on it, so it's a worm gear that's not connecting with I don't know what you call it, a standard gear. But I've already got the motor on the way. It is stuck in customs in LA right now, so who knows if or when I'll ever get that. But aside from that, I am actually working on the cocktail Pac-Man that I got from Cameron. That's the last one. I got mine way back there. It works great. And I got the other one that I sold. It works great. But this last one is the one that the monitor had been on fire at some point. I'm hoping that was just the flyback. I've replaced the flyback, recapped the monitor, replaced typical resistors. But I'm waiting to turn it on. I need a good while to get the camera set up and get ready to actually repair on camera, because if it does catch on fire, I really want to catch that on camera. So that's what I've been working on lately. Did everybody else talk about that? Say that one more time.
I said, sounds like a Sega game.
Real.
Yeah, except Zach's on.
And for me, obviously, like I mentioned, too many projects to count. I talked about the Golden Tee a little bit. Yeah, pulling together a new board for that. And if you remember from that video, that monitor is dead, and I was using my little, test 13-inch K7000, but that was flaking out on me in that video. So I got that monitor sort of dialed in, rebuilt, recapped, all that, and that's working good. I've been building a little monitor test bench power supply with an isolation transformer and all that, sort of in an enclosure with all the right connectors and stuff. And I think I'm going to build one of those for my buddy Mark, who's building the Back to the Media arcade, and also been working a little bit on that Missile Command cocktail. But yeah, it's one of those things where I got so many going on, and I'm making an hour of progress here, an hour of progress there, and all these different projects. And I need to focus my energy on one or two to get them done and down into the basement. So looking ahead, talking about upcoming plans that we've all got going on and parts or other things that you're looking for. For me, I'm working on a video for this weekend. It'll go public on Sunday. Channel members will get access to it sometime tomorrow. That's all about 2 free cabinets that I picked up, I think in April. And these were ones that Liam found, because again, I wasn't looking. He found them on Facebook Marketplace for free, like 25 minutes from my house. And they came with a bit of a surprise. So I'll have that episode this weekend. One of the things that I'm planning, again, with all this, I got a 4-day weekend for Independence Day. I just ordered another case of isopropyl alcohol from Walmart, because they've actually got the cheapest I could find for a large volume of it. I'm going to do like 4 or 5 cabinets at the same time. So my garage is going to be completely filled and completely flammable. So I will have all the fire extinguishers at the ready. And then, like I mentioned, I've got 2 more pickups to do in the next couple of days. So one again, Mark hooked me up with, because he's the one looking and he sort of finds these like secondary things. There was a game that he was interested in that I think it was somebody was responding to his wanted ad, and there was a little bit of miscommunication. He thought it was working, but it's not working. So I'm going to pick it because he's so overwhelmed with projects too. And now he's trying to concentrate on just buying working machines so he can get the projects done. So I'm going to pick that up in the next couple of days. And on a whim, I bid on and won my first ever like auction for a full complete game. So I'll have a video coming up about that. And it's something I kind of swore I would never do. And Jeremiah is going to give me a bunch of crap for it. And without getting into much more detail, I'll be in the market for a Zaxxon flight stick pretty soon. So yeah. Upcoming plans. Yeah. And parts wise, yeah, that Zaxxon flight stick. I need a Qbert harness. I was bidding on one on eBay, and I thought I was out of my mind because I think my max bid, I was winning for most of the time that this harness was up, and I think Troy from Troy's Restorations, found that eBay auction for me, and I thought I was out of my mind when I bid $192 on this Qbert harness, and it sold today for $355. For an untested Qbert harness that only had one picture of it coiled up in a box. So you don't know if it's complete. You don't know if it's hacked up. $355. So I guess I'll be looking for a repro if I can't find an original. Cameron, how about you? What plans you got coming up? What parts are you looking for? That sort of thing.
So I've got a Berserk that's sitting in the garage that has been made into a Galaga. That kind of needs the same thing. I need to alcohol the sides off and get all that down, but I need Berserk parts. I need, I'm probably going to J-Rocket, if I'm being honest, at least to start, on this thing, but I need a control panel. I need the bezel. I need the marquee just to, so I want to get it at least presentable and playable. And then I'll deal with finding original boards and stuff down the road. Outside of that, I've got a Shadow Dancer cabinet that someone had turned into an NBA Jam. And I have not had a full-size NBA Jam. It's a game that I would love to have at some point. And I was kind of like, oh, well, this will suit my needs. But it is large enough that like it's not as wide as an NBA Jam, but it's a big cabinet. And Shadow Dancer is a pretty rare game. That's a pretty rare cabinet. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but like it's not a game that I love enough really to restore myself. But I know it's a game that needs to go back to what it was eventually. So I guess I'm looking for Shadow Dancer parts, but more than that, I'm looking for someone who wants a Shadow Dancer and would love to take it off my hands. And if anyone wanted to swap for an NBA Jam, I'd be happy to make some kind of deal on that down the road. So shout out to everyone in TV land for that one.
I don't think I've ever seen. I played it on Genesis. I don't think I've ever seen but it's Shinobi like with the dog, right?
I think it's Shinobi 3 is what it technically is, but it's like it's a dedicated cabinet, but like it's just a super rare Sega cabinet. And worst case scenario, like it's like it's been jammatized. It's like I could drop another Sega game in there and at least get it close. But like it's been painted brown. It's been like say it's totally jammed. It's got a nice monitor and all the other parts to it, but like somebody redid the control panel looks pretty good, but like they took off the original metal overlay, and I don't know that anyone's reproduced that at this point, and so I think that's going to be the hardest part to find. It still has the bezel is all still there, and I don't think the marquee will be hard to find at all because it was a kit game for the most part. But the dedicated cabinets are just super hard to find, and I just happened to look into one. I think I bought that NBA Jam. It was playing blind. I think I got it for $100 or something like that. So I don't have much in it, but like I want to. It's kind of things like you don't want to give it to the wrong person because you don't want it to just sit there and not get done. But like right now, it's in my garage and I'm not doing anything with it. But like I'd like to get it to someone who would really love it.
If you're looking for the parts, I think Coin Op Shop had a Berserk control panel recently.
I will definitely take a look at that.
Quarter Arcade. Okay, cool.
Yep, I like Quarter Arcade. I got a bunch of. I think I got two recently. I got two Qbert power supply PCBs from Quarter Arcade. So yeah, anybody out there watching, listening, whatever, if you're interested in a Shadow Dancer, reach out to Cameron here, and he'll happy to work out something with you.
can I ask a question of you guys on that?
Yeah.
So, like,
Oh yeah.
do you guys feel a responsibility whenever you find these like rare cabinets, even if it's not something you necessarily want, to like save them for other people? Because I have a bad habit of picking up like there's a Stern Rescue. I drove to Cincinnati. It was made into a Gunsmoke, and I bought it, not needing it, not wanting it, not having a place for it. And I parked it, and it was in my garage for a long time until I found another local collector who had all the other rescue parts to put it back to original. Because like the guy who was he was like, yeah, I'm about to 60 in one. And I was like, I don't want you to do that. So I drove to Cincinnati to pick it up. I have a bad habit of doing these things.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. For example, our Firefox, we went to much more pain than we probably would have needed to bring the thing back to its exact original condition. It's running with all its original components when we probably could have replaced the disc player or the monitor or both at the very minimum. So yes, I see where you're coming from.
I try to cut myself off in sympathy for items like that, but I 100% get it. You see that stuff and you think that only you can save it, but it ends up just being a lot of time and money you didn't intend to invest, and it ends up being your baby at the end of that.
And then you drive all the way to West Virginia to make a handoff. I do feel some sense of that. And I, so like the best example for me for that is that dumb little mini cab that I did a April Fool's Day video about that, excuse me, that is still sitting in my garage. I have resisted the temptation to destroy it. I know Don Panetta, not his real name, from the Claw forums. He is a connoisseur of rare cabinets. He is probably the best at playing the "What was this cabinet originally" ID game. I've been tracing and like making all these like measurements for him to add it to his database of cabinet dimensions. And it doesn't take up that much room, but maybe at some point I'll give it away for free or something. All right, maybe I wouldn't feel bad if somebody turned that into a 61, but I just don't want it to be, wind up in a landfill.
That's exactly it. It's just, and again, I don't want to hate on anyone's got a 60 and 1 because like they serve a purpose. I know that for people that don't have a ton of room, but like it's one of those deals for me where I'm just like, yeah, I don't know why I have this like affinity towards these things that I'm like, oh, this is too far away and it costs a little bit more money. But again, like if I don't pull it out of this place, it's not going to exist anymore. So, and I'm good at trying to find things homes too. That's the thing. I know a lot of other collectors, so it's just like, who's got the parts to make this right quickly? There's always my mindset on that.
You're like a crazy cat lady for arcade games.
Yeah, that's it.
Says the guy with the cat in the background.
Recently, when we were picking up that electronics bench I mentioned previously, the guy who sold it to us was a mover, and he told us that a lot of the time he actually picks up on a regular basis arcade games out of people's houses, but he just trashes them all. So that's what we told him. If you pick up anything else, please call us before you throw it away.
That's where that class of 81 thing came from. It was a guy who picks up junk, and he told me it was a friend of his who, like, I guess his father had passed away and they pulled it out of a basement. But I will tell you a great trick is if anyone that you know is a person that goes down into basements or in attics or all those places like TV repairmen, guys that do plumbing, any of that stuff, let them know that you're looking for it. Because if they're walking through someone's house and they see a broken game over in the corner, all they have to do is say, hey, I know a guy, here's his number. You can call him and he'll probably make you an offer on this thing. And like you'll end up getting a lot of phone calls for people saying, I've got this game, just get it out of my house.
Well, and especially like you were saying, Liam, right? Like tell them like, hey, I'd be happy to hand you a crisp $50 bill for anything you find, right? So crisp. Awesome. Jeremiah, Liam, any plans, anything you're looking for right now?
I want a Smash TV control panel. Don't know where to get one. It's a pretty big one. And the other seemingly hard to find part, cocktails for a millipede. To mount the monitor. Because I have a spare 13-inch monitor, but no brackets to mount it in the cabinet. So not really sure what to do with that. The cat does not.
If you got pictures of what that should look like, you should send those over. I don't know what I have, but I'm happy to look to see if I've got anything stashed away somewhere.
Looks like an aircraft carrier.
It's like just like wings, because the monitor for Millipede is mounted vertically, but it has the same cabinet layout as the horizontal ones, like Crystal Castles. So it just has like extender wings that go out the side of the monitor frame to hook over the wood. I've got a wanted thread on K-Love. You can look at that. It's got images of it.
I'll tell you, it seems like you can almost like I mean, again, I know keeping it original is always the goal, but like to get it going, like put some other metal there, build it like an erector set.
Yeah. There's one guy, I forget his handle, who did that. And I might do the same thing, but I just don't have all those tools set up yet.
That's what the new workbench is for, right?
There we go. How about you, Jeremiah? Any upcoming plans or things you're looking for before we get into explaining why the heck the words Kreamy Korner appear in the title of this episode?
Yeah. So the only real thing that I'm working on that I'm not sure about yet is the Pac-Man cocktail. If the monitor does not work after what I've done, I've got I've got 3 Geo7s that work here. So if something's gone wrong, I can compare the two of them. And if the PCB, if I can't get that fixed with what I'm thinking I need to do, then I've got a working Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man back there, so I can cross-reference those as well. Said all that to say this, that hopefully the next 2 repairs I need to do will be completely self-contained, because I've got enough stuff built up that I won't need to outsource any new parts.
Well, and so what you're saying is part 2, the long-awaited part 2 of your multi-pack, or I guess multiple Pac-Men restoration is hopefully coming soon. Do I have that right?
It's just around the coin-op corner.
There you go. And, you know, some of you might not know, but Cameron has a vested interest in seeing these games come to fruition and come back to life, because he's actually the person who sold you these Pac-Man cocktails.
That is
yeah.
correct.
Funny enough, like I should have documented that find last year better than I did, because I don't know exactly how many games I pulled out of that, but it was another like operator who had died 10 years ago. His they like were parked in a garage, and the house is over in Nolensville, Tennessee, and it had been bought out because it's all getting developed. So they were going to like bulldoze the garage and the house and the whole thing, and they were just like, we got to get rid of all this stuff. And so like over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, I was kind of piece by piece pulling out a carload of stuff at a time, and like I don't know, I think I probably pulled 8 or 9 games out of there, but like I kept very little. Like I kept one of the cocktails for myself. I have a Galaga cocktail, and I think actually I'm trying to think if there's I told you all the other Pac-Man stuff, but like I got a really nice Pac-Man like stand-up that I still have out of there, and quite a few other things that like I bought and guided on to other collectors, because I was like, again, if I don't get this, I'm going to get bulldozed. And a lot of cool monitors and stuff out of that place too. So it was a good find, but just didn't document it as well as I did this most recent one.
But you did, however, document the handoff. And I remember there was an epic photo with some epic beards where you guys were shaking hands because you met up, I guess, maybe halfway or something for this sale.
Yeah, Jeremiah definitely had a story. And he was, it's like he was just far enough away, and it was like, and I like the way that I hold my games is like in a Ford Escape. So it's just like I like game at a time is usually as much as it was. So like I knew they would fit because I had put all of them in there when I brought them home. But I already had a Pac-Man and a Miss Pac-Man cocktail of my own. And I was like, well, and again, like I want to get these to someone who knows how to fix it, has got a plan for it. He kind of laid it all out like, hey, I'm going to keep one for me. I'm going to sell one to try to get my money back and all this. And I was like, yeah, let's figure it out. And then like I don't exactly remember what town we met in, but it was about halfway, and it was a pleasant drive. I mean, it's probably been about a year ago. I don't exactly remember, but I remember it was about the same time this year, I think.
Yeah, I just checked the day that I gave you positive feedback, and it was like September 9th, 22. So about a year. Yeah. Yeah. And Cameron gave me a wonderful pool noodle to use for strapping everything to the truck. I still have that, and I've used it on like every game since then.
Yeah.
I've seen it. That is a pro tip for using pool noodles. And that's a great segue to where I saw this pool noodle. Maybe that's getting a little risque. But so the story behind Kreamy Korner, Jeremiah, do you want to tell us about that?
I can. So, I live in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. Like, there are people in Kentucky who don't know.
They never even heard of internet there.
Yeah. No, they pump internet out here through a pipeline. Sometimes they have to bring it in like a dump truck. But it's so I'm in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky. Charlie is like so high up in Virginia that he's basically in DC. Is that correct? Yeah.
I'm
So,
like near like Harper's Ferry.
Okay, yeah, wherever that is. And so I had seen some empty cabinets near me for about $50 a pop. And I didn't want any of them, so I shot it to the Coin Gem podcast Discord, and Charlie wanted 2 of them, so I went and I got those for him. And then after that, I saw a game that it was so rare I never thought I'd own one, and it was the 1930s electric mechanical digger crane, somewhere near where I thought Charlie lived. So I shot him a message and I said, "How far are you from this?" And he said, "I'm going there this weekend. I'll get it for you." So Charlie picked up that for me. I had those games for him, and we found that the place directly in the middle of us was called Burnsville, West Virginia, and that place is even smaller than
There's
the place
nothing
I
there.
live in. There's
Yeah.
legitimately nothing there. So I looked around on maps. The only restaurant there was this ice cream / grill place called Kreamy Korner, like Kreamy Korner. So I said, "You want to just meet there at lunchtime?" And we both made the 4-hour trip, although I made it on my own with a fistful of cigars, and Charlie made it with a truck full of kids. So I'll let you guess which one was more fun. But
3
we
of the
met
4
there.
kids.
Yeah. and we swapped everything, and we had a great time. They had pretty good food, to be honest with you.
You're missing some key details. Okay, so let me add the color commentary. So when Jeremiah posts this on our Discord, right? He said, "Does anybody want this?" And I said, "I don't want it, but I don't want these, but I don't not want these." Right? These were empty cabinets, nothing in them. And I was willing to throw, and they were like $50 a piece, right? The guy had a whole bunch of them. There's really only 2 that I would have even cared at all about. And I figured, this is like 10 minutes from your house, Jeremiah. It's like really close to you, right? And okay. And I said, and I figured, maybe selfishly, I'll give him the money, and maybe one day I will find myself somewhere near him and I can swing by and grab these things. But they might be sitting, in his place for an extended period of time. And in fact, if you saw the previous episode of the Coin Jam podcast, in fact, they were in the background of his video. So that claw machine is there's the there's the pool noodle, and that is the antique claw machine that I picked up. And so it's funny, I was on my way up to a party at Jeff Kinder's place. We can chat a little bit about that later. It was awesome. And I was going to be passing through this town anyway. It was somewhere near like Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So taking the sort of scenic route to get to New Jersey. And this collector he had a huge garage that went like 3 like car lengths deep. It was super, super deep, almost like a fire station, right? And it was completely filled with like claw machines and other types of amusement machines. He had a couple of pinballs, a couple of arcades, but it was 90% like amusement, redemption, but like antique ones, beautiful brass and I don't know, rich mahogany or whatever type of stuff. And this is a really, really small thing. And I was able to fit it in the cab of my pickup truck with one of the seats lifted up. It just sort of fit there, right? And it sat there for an entire week. I didn't even want to take it out of my truck because I figured I would risk damaging it by taking it out. And so it rode all the way down to West Virginia. In there, we made the handoff. We made a little video. We took a photo. That's up on Clav of us sort of shaking hands like some piece of cord or something like that to make this handoff. But I really appreciate Jeremiah doing me that favor. And then he literally was like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "You literally inconvenienced me for about 7 minutes to pick this thing up." because it was super easy. Just put it right in the truck. It didn't even have to wrap it or strap it or anything. Just throw a blanket over it and it was good to go. So I think that's also going to be an upcoming video on your channel, Jeremiah, to learn all about that antique claw machine.
I will do the Pac-Man one first though, because I would like this crane to be sort of like a season or series finale for the coin op repair series I've been doing.
Season finale, not series finale.
I'll give you that. It is possible that I will, swap all these out with other stuff down the road. But I want to extend my thanks to Charlie all the more, even though he didn't have to go very far out of his way. I found these mechanical digger cranes, which I've got 2 of now. I found those online when I was like 12. And since then I've been dying to know how they work. And there's nothing online about how they work yet. I'll have that soon. So to have these now after wanting them for over 10 years and for him to play a part in it, I'm extremely thankful to you, Mr. Charlie.
Nothing at all, Jeremiah. Happy to do it, and thank you for your help. So that's a little bit of a warm-up. Our kind of main event, our main draw here today is this awesome experience that Cameron had, and is still kind of sifting his way through. If you saw the title of the episode, or maybe you've even seen the thread on Clav or pictures that Cameron has posted on Facebook, he self-titled it the big Nashville barn find. So for folks that maybe have or haven't seen this sort of boss moves only picture you've taken with this sort of lineup behind you, can you kind of set the stage for us of where did all of this start? Right? Did someone reach out to you? Did you find this? Where did this all come from?
So, funny enough, a couple years back, I bought a NBA Jam arcade 1-up from a guy here locally in town, and I know that's a sin for a lot of people. Arcade 1-up, most people don't like it. Online NBA Jam is great. I don't care what anybody says. And with that, I did update sticks and all the other fun stuff, but that's a different story. That said, we've kept in touch. Like this guy lives down the street. He's a guy who he deals with a lot more with that arcade 1-up stuff, deals a lot more with putting together like building control panels and just all kinds of fun electronic stuff, but not exactly classic arcade things. But he reached out to me and just kind of sent me a picture of a Kickman, and he says, "Hey, do you know anything about this game?" He's like, I'm thinking about picking it up. He's like, and he lives in an apartment, so he's like, I don't know if I could fit this, and we kind of talked about it, and ultimately he decided it was not going to be a good fit for him. But he had found it on OfferUp, and it had been posted for 4 months. He sent me the link to the thing. He's like, I did talk to this guy. He's like, and the pictures, and it's probably still on there. If you search OfferUp, you could find the pictures that are on there. And the guy had it posted with an $800 price tag and a couple of really terrible pictures and so, he said, yeah, he's like, I have talked to this guy about this. He's like, but he never had gone out there. So I was like, well, I'll send the guy a message. And I did. And I don't know, a week or 2 went by, I heard nothing. And I followed up on it again. I said, hey, if it's easier to text, here's my phone number. I was like, and he sent me his number back. So we started text messaging. And we decided, I was like, well, I'm going to let me come out and look and just kind of see what shape it's in, because the pictures were terrible. And so what
was in the pictures? Could you tell they were arcade games, or what was in the pictures?
Oh, I could. So again, the all-seeing eye, whenever you have dealt with these things enough, you kind of know what things are by shapes and colors and little bits. And I could see 11 of the 12 games that were in there. I knew what they were automatically, it's like, and the thing that got me going is there was a Tempest Cabaret in there, which is something that I have been hunting for, but Tempest is, it's always one of those games, it's always cost more than what I am willing to pay, because I'm a guy that likes to find things cheap, fix them, and put them back together. And so with this, there was some kind of, because there were multiple cabarets in there, which is a thing I love to collect. If you see behind me, I've got quite a few of them in the space. But I was like, okay, I definitely want that. There's there was a Stargate Cabaret, there was a Make Tracks Cabaret, there was a Pac-Man Cabaret, there was an Omega Race Cabaret. There was some Rockola stuff that was pretty rare in there, and but I could kind of tell from this one kind of deep dark picture. But what you couldn't see is what shape are they in? What's the bottom of them look like? What's kind of what's the storage situation? What's the story? So after text message with the guy, I was like, hey, can I come out there on Monday? Like, just take a look around and kind of see what I'm getting into. Because as you know, when you go to pick these things up, part of it is like what's in there, but like what does it take to get them out of these spaces? Because you just don't ever know. I can tell you, like, I moved my road blasters from an upstairs that was like on an L-shaped staircase. And after that, I was like, you know what? It's like usually when they're upstairs, I don't want them that bad. Like it's just hard to do by yourself. All that said, I went out there and like it was at a auto salvage yard. Like there was a mechanic shop and like an auto salvage yard, and then there was like a trailer for like an 18-wheeler that had been parked out there a long time ago. And the story that I got from the guy that I was talking to was basically that he said that sometime in the 1990s, a guy had a coin-op business and he closed it down. And I have every reason to believe him, but I think his dates may be wrong because everything that was in that trailer in cabinets screams mid-80s at the best. Like, there's some tax tags on things. And I think like 85 was like the latest one. So I think somewhere right around there is when it all closed down. But whenever you open, like there were like cars in the way of the door of this thing. It was grown up kind of around it, but I could get in the one side door to this thing. When I opened it up, there was like shelving on each side of this thing that had been built out. And on these shelves were like empty candy boxes and like parts for things that you would see inside of like not necessarily like arcade games, but like if you were to own like candy machines, like Lance Cracker boxes and M&M boxes from like the 80s that were empty, but like, some of them had like pegboard hooks and stuff inside of them. And they were all kind of crammed in there. And that kick man was at the very front, like by the door. There was no power in any of the place. And the only other thing, they had opened it because like they had started using the other side to store car doors and carburetors and all kinds of other fun stuff that were just kind of piled up. And so in having the conversation with the guy, I was just like, okay, what do you know about this? He told me a story, but there's no power and I can't test it. But I pulled the kick man out and I could see the bottom looked pretty good on it. And I said, well, can I, I was like, okay, I want to make a deal on this, but like this necessitates, like, we're going to have to get a U-Haul, like, and I'm going to need help to do this, was my mindset. And so we ended up like in the price change. That was the other thing. So like that $800 tag that they initially had on the offer up, he was like, well, we want $2,000 for all of it. And I was just like, well, which still wouldn't have been a terrible deal, but I was just like, okay, well, 2,000 is not 800, and I was like, I just don't know if, I was like, I want some of this stuff, but I don't.
Where did that come from? Did they kind of see like your eyes, getting wide and glimmering?
So what he told me was, he said, yeah, he's like, there's a guy who down in Florida who has contacted us, who has made an offer. And he's like that, he's like, but if you want today, I'll sell it to you for this. And I was like, when is the guy from Florida coming? And he was like, we don't know. And I said, I can give you, I was like, how about this? I said, why don't you let me pay you $100 for this kick man? I'll take it home and see what shape it's in. Cause like, there's no keys, there's no anything. Let me take it apart and kind of see what's in there. And at first he was like, yeah, we could do that. And he came back, he goes, well, you gotta give me $200. And I said, okay, here's $200, which would not have been a bad deal for even a broken kick man. But like, so we made that deal. I put it in my car. I took it home. Like it got power whenever, but I was like, I know I don't want this. But there was another local collector who I know who had been trying to restore another kick man, but he didn't have all the parts. I ended up calling him like the day after and I said, hey, I've got this. We made a deal that was more than fair on his end. He came, gladly picked it up and took it on. And, from there I was like, okay, but I had seen kind of the shape, because the weird thing about this barn, and I just back this up from the grown up side, like the back where like a tractor trailer would open up, someone had opened the doors to stick some car parts in there and they had not closed it. And then one of the doors had come off. And so like there was a Miss Pac-Man cabaret, which I put pictures of, that was totally just obliterated. The rain had got to it and it just was swollen to the point that it fell apart. And beside that, there was a mouse trap that one side of the bottom of it got wet, but like I could tell because I could see two sides of it. I was like, it's not too bad. And over in the corner was a jump bug, and kind of like, and those Rockola cabinets are just notorious for falling apart. And it was in pretty good shape overall. And so I was like, okay, this has got a little water, but this isn't bad. And I was like, the stuff in the middle shouldn't have, got it too bad. So we ended up, striking a deal. I'll say I paid $200 for the kick man. I said, I'm going to give you $800 for the rest of this when I come back this Saturday. So overall, I paid $1,000 for everything that was in the truck. which is a killer deal. And I think
amazing.
And I did the math by the time. So like I had to rent a U-Haul to get out there and do it. But by the time I paid for the U-Haul and all the things, I've got roughly around less than $80 a game is what I have paid for this stuff. Okay. Obviously I'm going to make more than all of my money back. There's some stuff that I'm going to keep for me. There's some stuff that I'm hooking some people up on some things here locally, and I'm just making trades more than anything. And like, it kind of what I told myself was like, I'm going to offer this up first to like people that I've done deals with in the past of like, and I've really just been like, there's a couple games I know I'm not going to keep. So I was like, I'm going to offer this for less than what, book value is on all of it. I really have like the only things I've really plugged into test were the stuff I wanted to keep. The rest of it I haven't touched. I sold the Kicks Cabaret on that was in there, which is the rarest game that was in there. But kind of in the same way.
A lot of people groaned.
Well, dude, it was so funny because like the moment I posted those pictures on Instagram and Facebook, my message box blew up. I mean, like everybody was like, "Oh, I want this and I want that and I want this and I want that," which I expected. And then on top of that, like, everybody was like, "Oh, well, what do you want for it?" And I'll pay anybody else. But one of the things that like I'm a big believer. It's like I want to get things to a home where it's going to be enjoyed. But I love when stuff can stay, like on site. So Patrick McKinnon, who owns the game terminal, I sent him a picture of everything that I had, whatever I had all lined up. And we've done some deals in the past. He's bought some games for me that he's restored and put into the arcade there. And I said, "Is there anything here that is of any interest to you?" And he was like, there was a couple games he wanted that I'm going to keep for myself. But he was like, but I asked him, "Do you have a Kicks already?" Because he has a cabaret. Again, when I talk about things that are in the back that nobody sees, he's got a bunch of cabarets in the back that he's planning on doing a new thing over at the game terminal. He's like, "No, I don't have a Kicks." And I was just like, okay, it makes total sense to me that it goes there because number one, I have a Kicks machine that's in my arcade. It's my oldest daughter's favorite game. I cannot trade the cabinet we have because she's got so many memories with that particular game. So it's like, and I don't need two of them. So this way, I know it's going to get restored. It's going to stay local, so I can go play it whenever I want. And it's it's a pretty rare bird. So he paid me more than good money for that. I made all my money back off of just selling that one game to Patrick. And it's like, and everything else at this point, it's just like it's stuff that I want to keep. Now, I will preface this by saying, because I know people are watching this and thinking like, "Oh, well, he didn't pay anything for this, so I'm going to offer him less money." I'm not going to sell it for overly cheap just because of that. But right now, it's like I'm just looking to trade off some things. Like you were talking earlier about like having, your friend who's like trading off project games, trying to find working games. That's kind of where I'm at with the stuff that I've already got a Defender. It's like I don't really want a Mousetrap. Like I've got multiple Pac-Mans in my house, so I don't need a Pac-Man Cabaret. It's like all that stuff. I'm going to let that stuff go. But it's been a couple weeks since I did this. And I'll tell you, like, I was supposed to have a friend who had they had committed. They were going to David, who I talked about earlier. But he had a bit of a medical thing. Like the night before, he called me like, "Hey, I may still come, but I'm actually in the hospital right now, with a thing." And I was like, "Dude, don't sweat it." But I already had the U-Haul parked in the driveway, ready to go the next morning. And I was like, "You're fully committed at this point." And I ended up having to go get all these out by myself, which was a bit of a wrestling match, if I'm being honest, because they were crammed and they're tight. And
there was that bar,
yeah.
What's that called when you go to party and you have to the limbo bar, basically.
It was the weirdest thing because again, there was, when you say the Kickman was in there first, the Fantasy was right behind it, and then it kind of opened up where all the cabarets were kind of in the center, and all of those came out fairly easy, other than we had to move a few cars, we had to cut some weeds out of the way, and we had to get all that lined up. But they came out fairly easily on a dolly by themselves. But the stuff that was in the back, you couldn't get it out of the back because it was so grown over. And to get it, it had all been welded in on the front and back side. And I'm guessing that it all got moved over in that truck and just parked, because I feel like somebody put all those games up on that platform and then welded those bars to keep everything from falling over. And they've been up there for 30 years that way. And so there was no, they were packed in so tight that you couldn't get anything out. So finally, I did wrestle the Miss Pac-Man out that was falling apart and got it to the ground from the back. And then piece by piece kind of rocked them. And one of the guys who worked at the mechanic shop, I think because they really just wanted to go home, because it was a Saturday afternoon, they were kind of helping me get the things like the last couple pieces laid down so I could get them out. But it was a ton of work. And it was funny because those guys, like the guys that worked there, I think they spoke Farsi and very little English. So like having to have that communication of like, oh, go right.
How much Farsi
left.
do you speak, Cam?
Very, very, very little. Like probably a couple of swear words if I thought about it that someone taught me a long time ago. But it was one of those deals where like I think they could hear me because like I was so tired. I mean, like halfway through it, like and it's always the worst when you're like halfway in and like I'm sitting on the step chugging Gatorade, just like trying to stay hydrated because it was hot. But like getting it all out of there was insane. And they did help me and it was great. And like, but even like the fantasy, which was like the first game I pulled out on the Saturday, I had parked it on the ground just to get it out of the way. And like when I had to get it up the ramp, like I physically could not push it up the ramp on the dolly. I was so beat tired. And they finally came and helped me get that on as the last one. But I will say, just to put it on the record, one of the coolest things that happened while I was doing this is the Blue Angels were doing flyovers in Smyrna, Tennessee, which is the next town over where the Game Galaxy is. And at some point, like they flew over the top of that thing, and there was like all this just dust, the 30 years worth of dust. The whole thing just starts shaking, and just a dust cloud goes up. And it happened twice while I was in there, and I was like, that was the coolest looking thing to see. But I was like, this is terrible for my lungs.
This is your Super Bowl experience, right? So that you made it to the Super Bowl and the Blue Angels did a flyover. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I told my wife whenever I got home, I was like, this is probably the best day I'm ever going to have in this hobby. I cannot imagine having another find like this and like just rare stuff, cool stuff. And like, and overall in pretty good shape. I mean, there's some rough corners on a few of these things and they all need cleaning. And I mean, anytime you haven't plugged something up in 30 years, they all need to be touched, but like,
how's the Tempest going?
Say again?
How's the Tempest?
So I have not really dove into it. Charlie actually gave me some advice because I plugged it in and like there was a dot on the screen and it got power, but like I haven't really messed with it other than like getting in there and just cleaning it off because they were all so grimy. I mean, like it was just dust upon top of dust. My hope is this weekend to kind of get out in the garage. Like I said, this last weekend I went on vacation. The weekend before, I kind of just needed like just to chill out because it took me about, I don't know, 2 or 3 days to like physically recover because the day I got back, like my hand was doing like without me even thinking about it, my fingers just kept peeling back because I think I had pulled some muscle in my arm that like, you don't think about like, oh, this is, I mean, those cabinets all weigh 200 to 350 pounds. And it's like you're moving them on dollies, but the way that I had to like manhandle them to get them out of that space and then up on that truck and then back down again, like it was just a lot of work for one person. And, it's like I do physical stuff in my everyday life anyways, but it just beat me up pretty good. And so haven't had as much time. I haven't. Yeah, you're about to go through that, I'm sure, with moving. And I think, whenever we moved into our house, and because I've been here for about 4 years, when I was looking for a place to put my game room, and at the time I had a Donkey Kong and I had a Miss Pat Cabaret, and I thought I had done everything to protect my games, and something fell over, and like there's still a ding in my Donkey Kong from moving, and then I'm like, oh gosh, this was immaculate until this point, but now it's the battle scar. It's like, oh, when we move in the house, this happened. So I hope all your games make it without any bumps and bruises. But spend the extra time to cardboard and wrap, guys.
Oh, this is past tense. This happened 2 weekends ago.
Oh, there you go. Okay, well, you're there.
Well, and Cameron, you've mentioned several of them, but can you give us kind of a rundown? And I'm looking at the epic photo here. Give us a complete rundown of which games were in this pickup.
So, like I said, the Kickman was the first one out, which I don't think is actually in that photograph because it was already gone. There was a Make Tracks and a Stargate, both cabarets from Williams. The Kicks, which is, again, Kicks Cabaret was like the most rare game probably in the piece. The Tempest Cabaret, there's a Mousetrap, which was probably the roughest one. Like I said, one side had been a little bit wet. There's an Asteroids in there. There was a Defender in there. There was a Pac-Man and an Omega Race, both cabarets. The Omega Race was actually, I found the back door, but it was in 3 pieces, but I did bring it with me. The Pac-Man has a little bit of, like one of the back corners had got wet and is kind of blown out. And then there was a Rockola Jump Bug and Fantasy. And Fantasy is another one of those, like, pretty exceptionally rare games that you just don't see very often. I mean, Jump Bug is a pretty rare game too, but like in comparison, it's like it's just a killer find. You know what I mean? Like overall, and again, like that Williams Cabaret, like Stargate Cabaret was another thing. Like I had wanted one for a long time. I have a Defender in my home. I don't know that I need both of those games, but for now, I was like, there's no way I'm not going to clean this up myself and play it for at least a while before moving it down the road. So I can tell you, like, the stuff that I'm planning on keeping for the 2 Rockola games, the Stargate, and I'll probably keep the Make Tracks for a while just because, like I say, they're a pair. And of course, I'm going to keep the Tempest, but most everything else I think there is probably going to go eventually. I've had offers on more than a few things at this point, but more than like cash on any of it. Like, I'm just kind of going like, well, I'm doing a lot of like, I'm looking for trades and like doing some 2-for-1 trades on things. So I'm like, give me someone who could fix this and could put it back to life, and give me something that works that I don't actually have to work on. Because like, and Charlie, you know this because you got a garage full of projects too. It's like, it's too many projects all at once. On top of, it's like I could 50 something games right now. You know what I mean? It's like in the garage, like there was already 15 games out there, 5 of which are projects of their own that like needed some love. So I'm at the point where like, I don't have it. If I put them all in there, there's no room to work on anything. And I would rather get them to someone who can put them together. And again, like get some, like hook some people up on some deals and for games that they really want, as well as like get some things that I'm looking for, that like, cause like, I really want to Joust. That's something that like, I've always, kind of wanted. I mentioned to Charlie, I like Asteroids, but I want a Cabaret and not the big behemoth that is the full size machine. So I'm like, yeah, it's like trading that and something else for, that way. But like, I haven't really, it's funny because like I had a bunch of people reach out to me, and I did reach out to a couple of people that I know locally, just kind of letting them know like, hey, if there's something you want, let me know. But I've been so out of town and out of pocket the last couple of weeks, like I really haven't had time to put anything up for trade or sale or, go through all the things. I think the mousetrap seems to be the thing. Everyone's like, oh God, I got to have that. And like, I've sent some pictures to some people. And again, it's like, I've got no love for it. I can't remember ever playing a mousetrap whenever I was younger. It may be a brilliant game, but I'm like, I don't want to do the work that it's going to take to fix the one bottom side of it and just put it all back together. But I can tell you the only thing so far that I have like plugged in at all, the Fantasy I plugged in and it works, but it's got garbage, in the sprites. The Defender was totally like, which I expected because it's Williams boards, you know how that goes. The Kicks, we did fire it up when I took it over there. It's kind of the same thing. Like it got some garbage on screen, but like, and they say the Tempest, which I, got power, but nothing else. And everything else, like I literally did a basic wipe down and parked them and haven't touched them in the 3 or 4 weeks, whatever that's been since I picked them all up. That's kind of the next step is like pulling some things out of the garage, cleaning them up and start taking them apart because there's no keys for any of this. So I got to drill some locks and get in there and see what shape everything's in. But I have no reason to believe that like the guy told me that supposedly they worked, which famous story everyone tells. Huh. But the thing about this, that while I do believe that all of the games had like little numbers, like if you remember the little dial, you should dial and like crunch the number and it would like pull it out as a strip. They all had numbers like 1 through 13 or something like that on it. And I think what happened is somebody closed down a game room. They put them all in the car in the middle of the night and like parked them because like one of the Rockola games had a coin bucket that was full of tokens, but they're nondescript tokens. It doesn't say where it came from. But I think this was just one game room that, again, somebody pulled it out of wherever it was, put them on a truck and parked it. So I have a feeling most of it probably did work at that time because I think it was probably a working game room, when it all went. But as with everything, whether it sat for 20 years or 30, they all need a lot of love and say they just got a lot of dust and, a little bit of grime from carport stuff, the ones that were kind of near that part of the section.
Brake dust and that sort of thing. We got we got a couple questions here from Frog Puppet, Overtime Arcade channel member. He asks, what's the favorite in your what is Cameron's favorite in his collection? And I'm guessing both of the ones that you just picked up and maybe in your broader collection of 50 or so games. What's your favorite?
Sure. So I think again, Tempest was the one that I was most happy to get out of this collection because it's a game that I've wanted for myself for a long time. So it's the one that like I was most excited about for sure. As far as like stuff that I keep in the house, I can tell you like Galaga has been my favorite game since I was real little, but Robotron is probably the one I play the most at this point. Like it's so hard and it's really good at beating me up all the time. But I love, all the games in my game room at this point are things that I really adore. And it's a problem because I have very little space. Yeah, they're all keepers. And it's just like, it's like, I think Robotron is a game that like, if you like arcade games, it's a game you should have because it's just so addictive.
I agree. I've got one working here at another project out in the garage.
Yeah. I know, Charlie, I'm excited to see all your projects. I know like you've been kind of cryptic about not wanting to show them off to your videos then, but I'm excited to see them all come to life.
It's got too many. I know them all.
And I sent Liam a full list today, and I've been posting in the members only Discord, and like I've been careful to like put spoiler tags, so if you don't want to know what it is, you don't have to know. But there's a couple, and I've been trying to have them be games that are both somewhat well known, right, and also something that a million people haven't done restorations of before on YouTube. But sticking back with yours, and I keep salivating over these, especially how half of them are cabarets. Frog Puppet was also asking, and I think you kind of touched on this. What do you have left out of the lot? Or I guess kind of like what's on the docket? I think you mentioned the Omega Race and the Pac-Man are on the docket. Defender and Asteroids and Mousetrap, and maybe you're keeping the others, or have already you already moved on the kicks.
Yeah, the Kicks and the Kickman have already left the house. They've gone to local collectors here in Nashville. The Make Tracks and the Stargate, I'm definitely going to do restoration myself and keep them for a while, but I don't know that they will get to stay forever because of the nature of how much space that I have. The Pac-Man and the Omega Race are almost definitely going to go. And the Rockola stuff, I'm going to keep, again, just because like both of those are games that like, I know if I turn them loose, I will never be able to get them back for the price I paid for these, obviously. And if I play them for a while and decide that I'm bored with them, I may sell them down the road. But like, kind of same thing with the Williams stuff. They're definitely going to get touched and cleaned up by my own hands and put back together. And then down the road, if I decide to trade them off, I will. But right now, like not working, the Pac-Man, the Omega, the Defender, the Asteroids, and the Mousetrap, like I'm ready to move them on without ever plugging them in. It's like I will send people pictures whenever I'm ready to do all that. But like I don't want to mess with them other than wiping them off so they don't make my shirt dirty when I go to move them. Because like it's just not like I don't have the capacity to keep them. I don't have the willpower to restore all of these games. And like you said before, it's just like sometimes when you do the restoration on these games, you get more into it financially and time-wise where you feel bad about moving them on. And I definitely have some games like that in my life. So I would rather send them on this way and get someone a deal because I've already got a deal on them than like actually taking the time to clean them up and make a little bit more money. Because again, it's like it's not I think anyone that's in this hobby, like you have to have a little bit of financial resource, but you also have to be smart enough to know that like you can spend $2,000 on a Robotron, but if you hold out, you could probably get one for $100 and fix it for a little bit more than that. But like you just have to be patient, and that's kind of where I'm at on this. It's like I would love to get a couple working games that I could play while I'm fixing the stuff that I have to fix, as opposed to like, I'm not saying that people can't make cash offers, but like, I don't, it's like, but I'm not. You're not going to say no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say no, but like, just the idea right now of like, again, like just getting like cleaning them up because they're dirty. You know what I mean? It's like the idea of like getting them photo ready, pulling them out of where I have placed them just to clean them up, photograph them and put them up on, Facebook or on the forums. like I haven't even wanted to do that the last couple of weeks because I was like, I just don't want to mess with any of it. I really just want to get, I want to get the Tempest going so I can play it, and then like piece by piece, be systematic about fixing the other ones.
And so and obviously we got more to talk about, but if people want to, like Frog Pub was just saying, he might shoot you a message on Clav. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Clav, Twitter, Facebook, what do you prefer?
I mean, Clav is probably the easiest way. Like if you're over there and you're serious and you're willing to drive to Nashville, then like hit me up over there. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram. I post arcade stuff on Facebook and Instagram, all the stuff. If you search Cameron McCasland, I'm probably you'll find me. I'm on the internet, as they say. Yeah, I mean, like wherever, but like I'm on, like I check my Facebook Messenger at least a couple times a week. I'm on Clav, probably more than I should be. But yeah, it's like I'm willing to talk about it. And again, but I'm looking again at this point for trades, and I don't know. There's stuff, like I said before, like I'd like to get a joust going. I've never had a Cubert. It's like there's some random games here and there. And then there's always, like I've mentioned before, like an NBA Jam, something that I want to have. I don't know where I'm going to put it, but like you figure that out when it gets here. Yeah, it's a big game. I've got an X-Men in my garage, and it's the same problem. It's just like I can't put it in the house because it's too big for this game room. But it's kind of like, and someone offered me a really nice TMNT, which I would love to have, but like I don't need an X-Men and a TMNT. I would just buy a board for the other one because it's too massive.
Is your X-Men a 6-player or is it a 4-player?
I've got the 4-player. I did.
Damn. All right.
Sam is about to turn the wheel again to head to Nashville if it was a 6-player.
Sam was literally. You couldn't see this, but Sam was turning to me. He's like, "Is it a 6-player? Does he have a 6-player?"
He wants a smaller game.
So the trick to, if you have a 6-player X-Men, you never sell it. What you do is you open a small apartment under the control panel because it's that big that you could actually charge rent on it.
No, I put one together, and it was quite the adventure. Yeah. You could fit several. You could fit several cabarets. Just lie them all down and shuffle them in there. It's packing efficiency because it comes apart. You just put it against the wall. Spare bedroom. Yeah,
that's it. It's a backbreaker. I have, even in 2 pieces. It's a massive cabinet. 2 monitors, man. It comes
apart in 3.
Yeah.
Monitor box comes out the back.
Yeah. Too big for my game room anyways. And again, like, I wish I had more space. So I'm really happy. Like I spent a lot of time on this game room, like thinking about what I wanted in here, making it all fit, and like, moving all the parts, which I'm sure all of you guys did as well. But like, it's like, because you do start to think of that. And now I'm like, okay, what can I do in my garage to like, again, be able to play the things that are out here, but still have space to work. And like, because I enjoy tinkering with them, but some stuff is like you keep forever and some stuff you keep for a while. And that's kind of where all the garage stuff is for me most of the time. But even now I'm like, oh, there's some of the stuff I don't ever want to give up.
Are you going to go to Southern Fried Game Room Expo?
I don't know. I was looking, I've got it's on my calendar as far as the dates, because Atlanta's about a 4-hour drive from Nashville. It's not too far away. There's a chance that I might come out for that, but it's not a for sure. With my work schedule stuff, it's like I never know until a couple weeks before what's going to be happening that I'm going to have to be responsible for. So like I took a vacation this past weekend. It was the first time I'd done that in 16 months. And so I'm, it's like a couple weeks from now, who's to say, but like I could sneak over there overnight probably if if nothing crazy pops up.
Well, may we all be as lucky someday as you and score an incredible find like this. So I think what? I remember when I got the Asteroids Cabaret, and I posted that on Clav. I think you said congratulations, and I'm so angry or something like that.
No, I said I'm happy for you and I'm angry for me, because it's one of those things where because like again, like I hope everyone finds these things too, because number one, if this would have lasted in that shell for another year or two, they would all be gone. Like they just would. So I hope they get found and put into places where people will take care of them. But more so, it is one of those things where like you see games that you want and you're like, man, that's cool because you got that for like $100, right? Like it was for the Asteroids.
Working.
Yeah, and it's just like, and it's got that funky doorbell on it and all that stuff. It's good
Not
that
anymore.
you found it. Yeah, well, there you go. But it's like, but you can put it back. You can put it back to right. It's a funny story. You got kind of the whole thing, and like, I wish more people could find this. And again, I feel very fortunate to be in the place that I am, and financially in a space where like you can go out and blow a little bit of money on a video game from time to time. And again, like having a supportive, family who's like, like willing to let you go spend your weekend traveling to and fro to pick these things up. It's, not everybody's got that. So, I know I'm fortunate, but again, I hope everybody in the hobby has a find like this eventually where they get a thing that they really wanted for really cheap, because that's getting rarer and rarer these days.
Well, and the warehouse raid fairy, came and visited you not too long after that. And I remember I like quoted you back on congratulations, and I'm so angry, right? Or I'm happy for you and angry for myself. But speaking of moving an entire collection of arcade machines, Liam, I don't know if you're in a good spot where you've got a good connection or whatnot, but
I think
do you want to
just not a lot of light.
yeah. Do you want to regale us with Yeah,
we could talk a little about that. So it all started basically because I've got a new job and we had to move. So we're setting up our hopefully permanent home. And it was nice because we had the opportunity to think about the arcade in terms of what we wanted in a house. We eventually found a crazy twisted house that looks like the sort of like the Weasley house from Harry Potter, just rooms and rooms and rooms stacked on top of each other in weird directions. So we've cordoned off 3 rooms of the house to become the arcade. The question was, how do we get everything from point A to point B? Because in our previous house, we had accrued about 20 cabinets, all full size, except for some cocktails, no cabarets. So all the heavy stuff you could think to throw at, plus a pool table and a jukebox. And we ended up moving most of it ourselves. Charlie came and helped us unload everything from the truck. But yeah, Sam and I just packed everything up, and that was a difficult time because we loaded everything in the day, drove it up that night, and then Charlie came by to help us unload it in the morning. We did take a lot of care in packing the games themselves. We're going to hopefully do a video about that, sort of how we moved things without destroying them or trying not to destroy them. Because
did anything really get damaged?
Yeah, we had a little bit of damage, just a tiny bit. We the art sort of collapsed in Asteroids Deluxe. I had to open it up, put the art back together. A cold solder joint and joust came undone, and the monitor was dead. We put that back together. The real stinker was Tempest, which decided that it did not like life anymore and was being annoying. It was wobbling all over the place, but it turns out the negative 15 volt regulator died. So I had to get some parts shipped from DigiKey and put that back together. So now everything we brought with us is working.
I said, it sounds like you needed more cool noodles.
Well, actually, so what we did do is we got a ton of ratchet straps, and we got a ton of moving blankets, and we got a ton of plastic wrap. And we plastic wrapped everything first. And then after they were plastic wrapped, we moved everything into the workshop, staged it overnight. And then we took everything from the workshop the following day and put it one by one in the truck, surrounded them in moving blankets, put them next to each other, ratchet strapped them in place individually against the wall. And for the jukebox, we actually did a much more complicated procedure because jukeboxes, again, like this is sort of out of the realm of video games per se, but the 1950s era Seaberg jukeboxes are tough cookies to move because there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of delicate machinery in there. I'm sure Jeremiah would know about this as well.
And delicateness on the outside too.
Yeah, our particular jukebox is one of a kind. It is either a prototype or somebody built this thing we're not really sure, but nobody, an expert in jukeboxes, seems to really understand how this particular machine works, because it is using a selection mechanism not designed for 200 records, yet it plays 200 records. So that is quite interesting. Anyway, there's a lot of glass pieces that are not replaceable because they're etched. So we ended up taping everything down that could move. Then we wrapped it in bubble wrap along the top. Then we wrapped it in a moving blanket. Then we did plastic wrap. Then we did another moving. Then we put it in a bucket. So to make sure that absolutely nothing could potentially hit the machine. And with Charlie's help, we were able to get it in the house, and it is playing again, which is fantastic. Though we did lose a tiny piece of T-mold in the back.
And that one, so the new house is beautiful, by the way, the beautiful like farmhouse, right? And your driveway, obviously goes right to the garage, and you had the truck backed up. And so most of the games came, right off the back of the truck, down the ramp into the garage. Some of them were going into the garage. Some of them were going into your main arcade room, which is like one of the first rooms into the house, after the garage. But the juke, we had to take that down the street. So we were going maybe 200 feet down your street, just the three of us pushing this juke on a dolly.
Well, the jukebox is super heavy, and actually it fell on me when we were loading it into the truck, which sucked because I was like, in my head, as the jukebox was falling on me, I had this, like, which do I care about more, the jukebox or broken legs? And I decided in that moment the jukebox. So I just let it fall on me, because this thing, I grew up with it. Bones heal, the jukebox.
I mean, you can't replace that much glass.
And it was something I'd grown up with, and it's extremely precious to me. So I was like, nope, I'm taking the hit. It's going to be okay. My body is the padding for the fall.
Well, and Russell in the chat is saying he knows somebody who's pretty knowledgeable on Seabergs and works on them. So might be one more person to take a look and see if they recognize it.
I've been through the jukebox forums. I've talked with Rich before he died about it. I've contacted a number of Seaberg experts regarding it. But most of the time when I talk to people about it who are in the know regarding jukeboxes, they go, wait, what? You mean it works? It plays 100? It plays 100 records? That's not possible. How? With a 60 selection unit? How does that work? And I explained to them that it's fitted with a 200 selection Seaberg K200 format, but it's using a R series selector. And they go, no, that doesn't work. Well, it does anyway. So in despite of your impossibility, it functions nonetheless.
And so where are you in the process now? Like, everything's in the house. I saw pictures you posted on Clov today. Things are getting set up.
Oh yeah, no, the arcade is well our priority. So that's pretty much set up. It's got we put up all our arts. So we have a collection of approximately 4,045 RPM records. We put up some choice record sleeves and frames all along the walls. We just covered the walls in the record sleeves, above the arcades, behind the arcades. It's just record labels and the neon signs. So everything looks very 80s in there, which is nice. So what we're going back down for this weekend is the rest of our furniture, and the pool table, which was too big to fit in the truck the first time. We got an entire 26-foot truck, packed it completely jam-packed full of games. So now we have to go get the 9-foot pool table, which is going to be another bear of its own.
And your actual home furnishings. And it's funny you mentioned hanging up all the vinyl records. Your video right now makes you look like the cover of the famous Queen album with the floating heads on the black background.
Well, that's the single point of light effect.
Awesome. And I'm seeing if we can get Cameron back on because we seem to have lost him. But hopefully he'll be able to jump back on momentarily. But any other tips that you would offer either Liam or Sam, tips on if you had to do it all over again, is there anything you would do differently, or things that worked out really, really well?
Before you move a game, really make sure that you've actually latched everything in place and that everything is secure. Because there were more than one time where we started to move something and said, wait, the top is not latched down, or the control panel's not fully latched. Like Gauntlet's got 4 latches, and yeah, there were 2 missing carriage bolts on Gauntlet's monitor we had not noticed. So when we tilted it back, the monitor started tilting back too, and we were like, we should probably put that down, fix that right now.
Well, that's one thing that I do whenever I move a game. If I'm picking it up from a seller, or I'm just moving it myself, is I either remove the monitor or I make double sure that monitor is very well bolted down into the cabinet.
In some cases, I think inside the game is the safest place to move a monitor, just because it's got that nice framework around it and it's bolted in place nominally. Like, you saw what I did when we moved those games. We had
that was impressive.
The shelf above the cabin of the U-Haul is where I put all the monitors.
They call that mom's attic, I think.
Grandma's attic, yeah.
You had them like bungee corded to the wall,
so that they didn't fall down. I'm glad, because we put a 27-inch monitor up there, and I was concerned about that because the thing's so heavy. But
driving 45 miles an hour the whole way in the slow lane.
Actually, this is something that terrified me, and that is another thing you should consider if you're moving a U-Haul truck full of games. Take the preferred highway route, because Google Maps took me off the highway and took me down a whole bunch of back roads, and I could feel every pothole just shaking my core. Like, is this going to destroy a game?
Oh, that's a vector.
No.
Oh, that's cocktail glass.
There's 3 vectors in the back. What am I doing? I'm surprised that asteroids after moving, honestly. I was not surprised that Tempest wasn't working, but I'm glad that the thing that wasn't working was not the monitor, honestly.
I think you lucked out. And yeah, you've got an awesome collection, and they've got a beautiful new home for your arcades and your family too.
But working better than it ever did in the old place.
It's a little bit of percussive maintenance is all it took.
Yeah, it's not skipping on the laser disc anymore. It's just working.
There we go. All right. Well, Cameron is working to rejoin us. He had to reboot his internet modem. So in the meantime, Russell in the live chat asked a question a couple minutes ago. He was wondering, and wow, it looks like it's because I'm not. I'm like looking at myself in the sort of self view of the stream, and it's like 20 minutes delayed, I think, because it was hitting commercials, and why it would show me commercials in my self view or ads. Anyway, so here's a question for you all, and we can ask Cameron when he rejoins. Perfect timing, Cameron. Perfect timing. Liam just wrapped up his story. Thanks for coming back, Cameron. Liam just wrapped up his story about moving, and I was going to put to you all a question that Russell asked in the chat, which is not including the YouTube content creators here or those that have already been in the chat, like Delusionals Arcade and I think some others. Who are your favorite coin operated amusement content creators on YouTube to watch? He said his favorites are Mike's Amateur Arcade Monitor Repair, which we all know and love, Classic Arcade Repairs, same deal, and especially for PCB repairs, and obviously Mike for monitors, and Joe's Classic Video Games, which sort of is, I guess, probably the largest and most active one right now out of all of them. So yeah, other than those, what are some channels that you all like?
We watch you and TNT from time to time, just because they've got an inventory of videos. We're trying to find something.
Cameron, can you hear us? Maybe not. How about you, Jeremiah? I know you really like.
I'm back.
Oh, good. Jeremiah, how about you? Who do you watch on YouTube other than the folks mentioned?
Oh, yeah, so I always watch Liam and Charlie's stuff. As far as channels outside of these that are just arcades, it's pretty much only Joe's Classic. And so I work on a computer all day for a living. So having something every other day that's kind of amusing to pass the time, I quite enjoy that. And he kind of, just watching his stuff that regularly, it kind of passively taught me a lot of the stuff that I know now about fixing these machines. I watched TNT a lot in the past. They've gotten where now most of what they do is live stream, and it's kind of lost the educational quality
we
to it.
usually look at their archive stuff.
Yeah, they're old stuff.
They ran out of games to talk about.
Yeah, but those guys, every single one of them are so funny. Like, they just say the darndest things. So,
And Sam also mentioned Vintage Arcade Girls, Cassandra's channel.
I love her.
and then
love it.
one more channel.
I have my copy of the price guide right here, available on Amazon.
Mine's upstairs.
We got ours.
I think I was the first person to order one though, because like she posted, like we're friends on Facebook, and she posted it, and I was like the first person to post on her Facebook thing and the second person to post to Claw that it had been ordered. So I was either the first or second sale of that book, which I'm proud of.
I keep it on my desk.
It's great.
Charlie, were you going to talk about the arcade party in New Jersey?
Well, yes, but I didn't get to add that, I would be, no matter what kind of list I rattle off, I will miss, somebody between Retro Ralph, She Lion, Jack Lick, Jeff Kinder's channel. I mean, Delusional has been in the live chat. That Tim guy, a whole bunch of people that I'm forgetting, and I'm sorry. But one of the things I do is every Sunday on Clav, I post a list of, I call it like the roundup of the top, the week's top arcade videos on YouTube. So every week I post this list of all these awesome videos from all these awesome content creators. I get asked all the time, Charlie, why the heck do you do that? People can just subscribe to them and see what's coming up. And I say, oh, it's for searching, so that when you search for something on Clav, I want a hit on one of these videos, because it's not going to search YouTube from Clav. So discoverability, type of stuff. And all the time there's new people posting things, or somebody with a long dormant channel that comes back and posts a video out of the blue and letting people know about that. But obviously, for me, the granddaddy of them all, and the person that to this day I probably watch more than any other channel, is still John's Arcade. So John, if you're out there, we appreciate everything you've always done, and please come back one day. Cameron, how about you?
So I'll echo everyone that you just mentioned. I have watched videos from, they're all great. One I've really been enjoying lately is a guy down in Dallas who goes under the Electric Starship Arcade. I have never talked to the guy personally. I have no clue, but like,
he never responds on Twitter.
Yeah, it's just like, but he has great videos, and it's just like a little bit of repair stuff, a little bit of auction stuff, a little bit of, him touring his own place and everything. And like, I've got family, because again, I grew up in, not near Dallas exactly, but on the other side. But I keep thinking the next time that I get down that way, I'm probably going to pop in on him, just because like I've watched enough of that stuff that I feel like I know the guy, even though I've never actually talked to him. But I like his stuff a whole lot. And so everybody you mentioned to, Troy stuff, Cassandra stuff, like there's not enough time in my day to consume as much arcade content as I would like to. But I will say, I work in local television here. I program on some channels. John's Arcade is something we show on television here in Nashville, and Cassandra's stuff we show, I'll call her documentary stuff, because John had a bunch of stuff that was like in it's on the internet on YouTube, which is where everybody knows it. But he had uploaded all this stuff for public access years and years ago. And like, it's all there and still manageable, and we were able to run it. So I still run it as reruns from time to time.
That's awesome.
Charlie, I think you're muted.
Oh yeah, no, I was just going to add, you said Troy, and I'm definitely remiss in failing to mention Troy from Troy's Restoration, who was in the live chat earlier. And he's awesome about, like, he does sometimes multiple, hour-long videos a day, and it's just incredible. He does car stuff too. And he's been super, super helpful to me behind the scenes, finding finding parts and that sort of stuff. But yeah, we are definitely in a golden age right now, or maybe a resurgence of content being produced. And obviously, like if you in the biz, in the YouTube, right, like there's both evergreen content and more topical content, right? And topical content is stuff that only matters right now, right? Some like console video games, right? Nobody cares about a game that was released 2 years ago. People want to talk about what was released right now, unless you're into retro stuff. And then there's evergreen content, like what we all do, that is it's forever relevant. Yeah, you might get a pop when things get released, but maybe one day Depth Charge will be some sort of cult classic, and that video will be out there for everyone to enjoy. But yeah, Liam, you mentioned another thing that we wanted to talk about. We're coming up. We got about 10 minutes left. So not only did I meet Jeremiah for the first time, what was this, 2 weekends ago, which was awesome, down at Kreamy Korner. And my kids, they like one of the ways I was able to get them to behave for a 4-hour car ride was I was talking up this place, Kreamy Korner, as if it was this awesome ice cream place to go to, and it lived up to it. And they keep talking about Mr. Jeremiah, and we should go back to Kreamy Korner. So not only did I meet Jeremiah for the first time, I also met Liam and Sam for the first time, and it wasn't at their house helping them move in. It was the previous weekend, or maybe the weekend before that. So Jeff Kinder, very, very, very well known in the classic arcade community, probably originally best well known for the Dragon's Lair project. So I think it's dragon-lair-project or something.com. And I think back in the day, the real focus there was on getting laser disc games working, and that was always the strength of that site. Jeff also has a YouTube channel called What Would Jeff Kinder Do? And he's got an amazing collection of around about 100 games, recently featured in a super high production value tour released by Dell on Delusionals Arcade. And so he threw this amazing party at his place in New Jersey, again, 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point. And that's where Liam and I and Sam, obviously the two of them know each other, but I met the both of them for the first time up in New Jersey. And this collection was incredible. So it's basically Jeff's entire basement. And you can see this on the video on Dell's channel. Shout out Dell's Arcade again. Basically, the entire basement is his game room, except for one area that's his workshop, I think, or one of his workshops. So the entire basement is his game room. There's maybe 50 games down there, including like secret hiding places for Tron and whatever type of stuff. And then he's got a detached garage, and that's filled with games. And I think he also keeps some of his collection at his parents' house, and they live nearby, maybe a couple blocks away, something like that. And so he rented this gigantic tent that you would like see at like an outdoor wedding, right? Like an outdoor wedding reception. And he had it basically like attached to his garage to basically extend the garage like halfway down his driveway. And he had games loaded in there too, including, a row of Sega Vectors, none of which were on fire. I think he has like an entire Atari System 1 collection, including Relief Pitcher, which was never officially released, and just incredible games. Awesome people, a ton of huge names, in the community. I know Liam and I were both a little bit awestruck to meet Andrew B for the first time. So thank you, Andrew B, for helping so many of us fix our games, especially Atari games and Vectors on.
Yeah, wouldn't have been able to put our
there was, of course, and of course, and like with Cameron is now has joined the Tempest Owner Club. I'm sure he is very carefully reviewing every word that Andrew has written in his guide on the 6100 monitor. But yeah, awesome people. Dell from Delusionals Arcade was there. Jay Leone from John. He's John's partner in John and Jay's Arcade at the Hangar Pub and Grill, and I think Jay also runs free play, a couple of free play arcades in Providence and Rhode Island. Awesome folks. People were working on Jeff's machines, because when you have 100 games being worked on, everything's gonna something's gonna happen. I know they had an issue with like the joystick on arm wrestling or Punch Out, maybe they were fixing. We had a swap meet going on in the street, right? So Jeff's neighbors were probably like, what the hell is going on? Like all these people with trailers and moving games, swapping them all around. So incredible experience. I don't know, Liam, if you have anything to add to that, or Sam too, because she was there too.
Yeah, it was an incredible time, honestly, for both of us. We went into this with like this list of games that we wanted to try out because I didn't think we would ever have the opportunity to really play those again. Like, say, Quantum, not really our deal for games. It's just like something that really wanted to experience just once, and it just happened to be there. And Major Havoc, obviously, but that's something we want to experience again because I really want one.
What was the game? Which game was the three of us had the most fun playing?
Oh,
do you remember?
Three of us.
Oh, the chicken game?
Chicken
The
Shift?
random game?
Chicken Shift.
Yeah,
That
Chicken
was
Shift.
so funny.
We were all just sitting there playing Chicken Shift.
It was way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, you didn't think a game with 2 buttons could really be that entertaining, but it's just the combination of the sort of like offbeat style compared to every other game there, plus good music and sort of intuitive gameplay made it quite the decent title.
I'm surprised there hasn't been an entire genre or subgenre of Chicken Shift, like, just like we have, roguelike games or whatever, why there aren't Chicken Shift like games out there.
A puzzler?
It's some kind of puzzler.
I think it's a puzzler.
Yeah. One of my favorite things, speaking of like what Cassandra puts as her genres, I love that Roadrunner is officially titled in her price guide as Coyote Twitcher Simulator as a genre.
That's awesome.
But no,
I love Roadrunner. That's such a great game.
Yeah, I think we played pretty much everything that we hadn't touched before, all the Sega vectors. It's great fun. TaxScan really is a standout game compared to the other Segas. Meeting all the great people was awesome. I know I definitely chatted way more than playing games. I think that stands true for probably everyone there. Especially enjoyed everybody's weird niche references with their T-shirts and hanging out with.
I died. I was deceased. Wait, tell them what it was.
It was wasn't it Billy Mitchell?
Yeah, no, but it was a joke from the.
Oh, ready to see an end screen.
Yeah.
A kill screen.
Yeah. I think that was Andrew was wearing that, right? Yeah. There's a Donkey Kong kill screen coming up.
Donkey Kong kill screen coming up.
But just like to have a T-shirt that's a reference to this, like, freaking that documentary is perfect.
Andrew B has also had T-shirts made of him before.
That's legendary.
Well, he's legendary in the community.
We got our overtime shirts.
Yeah, we did. We wore them when Charlie came to come help us move. Jeremiah's taking emotion of where's my overtime shirt?
I got wiped out at Jeff's party. I have another order coming. Yeah, my kids were super impressed when we got out of the car and both of you guys were wearing Overtime Arcade T-shirts. They were kind of blown away by that.
And then they went and played hide and seek for hours.
I don't do much on the way of T-shirts, but I need hats. You can do an Overtime hat and send them my way.
I don't have any hats yet. I do have
this
just arrived. This is Delusional's arcade hat and T-shirt. So, yeah, I'll get some an actual merch store going soon. I've just been doing it for free. We've heard from Kay. I mentioned in our podcast Discord, just the four of us to plan stuff that I think I've accidentally sworn twice. Or cussed twice on air that I'll be bleeping out in the audio version. I mentioned that in case says I leave for one episode and everything goes to another cuss word. As you all know, we try to keep this to a G or PG rating. And what's the green sort of sticker suitable for all audiences in the 90s arcade games. But so I think we're coming up. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying you nearly got me. Say I heard a big boom and all my power went out all at once, which is why I dipped out a minute ago. And I was like, oh man, because it was scary. And then while my motor was rebooting, I went and turned all my games off because apparently there's a major thunderstorm going on in Nashville right now.
Yeah, you don't want any power surges going through that.
For sure.
So I think we're coming up on 2 hours. I don't know if we want to go around the horn everybody, plug your channel or what you do, or where people can find you in the world. If people want to make outrageous cash offers to Cameron, what's the best way for everybody to get a hold of y'all?
Yeah, I say I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you search Cameron McCasland, I'm easy to find on the internet.
You're on IMDb, you're on Wikipedia, you're everywhere.
I've made some stuff. Say if you we didn't talk about that at all, and I'm kind of glad because I talk about it too much. But like I've got movie stuff out there. If you're into obscure documentaries or slasher films, I've made a couple of those in the past. You can check out on the internet from time to time. But yeah, I'm easy to find if you're into arcade games. I love chatting with people about stuff, and I've been trying, like Discord is something that I haven't jumped to completely, but I keep hearing people talk about like that's the place where everybody's at now. So I need to jump in full steam ahead and just get what you guys are getting over there. Who's next?
Jeremiah.
Well, I am Jeremiah Jackson from Coin Op Corner. You can find me on Clav as Jeremiah Jackson, spelled like Zaxxon but with the J. Please subscribe because I am almost at 500 subscribers. I'm almost at 400, but after 400 comes 500. Once I hit that 500, then I'll be making some dough off of this, and then that would convince me maybe to make a second season of Coin Op Corner.
Everyone subscribe to Coin Op Corner.
This is Liam and Sam from Retrobotics. And hopefully once we're done with this whole moving shtick, we'll have some more videos coming out. So you can find me on Klove as 64-bit.
And of course, I'm Charlie from Overtime Arcade, Charlie G on the Claw forums. New video coming on Sunday or early access tomorrow for channel members. Also want to give a big shout out to our fourth Beatle, Kay from Prime Arcade. Kay is mostly on Facebook and Instagram, although he does have a YouTube channel too, but search for Prime Arcade, not Instagram, sorry, TikTok. And Cameron's the one that got me to install TikTok, and I made I posted my short videos there too. But yeah, check out Kay on TikTok and Facebook under Prime Arcade. Guys, I think we've done it. Let's see if we can do an outro here semi-effectively. And do this here. So thanks everyone for watching episode 5 of the Coin Jam podcast. And we'll catch you next month.